Okay, let's watch a horary example of a health question, of a question related to ailment, to problems, to health problems. I've selected this as an example for a course I'm about to teach on medical astrology, or on astrology and health in Portuguese. And I recorded it a couple of days ago, and I decided it would be a good idea to do it in English to present it to you. So, what's the context here? The client, the querent, is me. I asked this question myself. I had been suffering from stomach pain. My stomach hurt a lot, and especially at night, especially after I've eaten mostly anything after twilight, to be honest. And a couple of times I had to go to the doctor, to the emergency room. So one day in 2013, in March 2013, the question popped, and I decided to answer. First, it's stomach pain. It feels hot and dry to everyone, and it's probably hot and dry in cause to most people. So why ask a question about that? Because first, I'm not choleric. I don't have an excess of fire in my body. I'm melancholic. The humor that is in excess in my organism is black color, melancholy. So I was not sure whether the problem was fire. And and besides that, and I would say more importantly, we have a very basic notion that was shared by all types of ancient medicine, and especially it was one of the tenets of astrology in relationship to health, and it derived from the traditional conception of the constitution of the organism, of the body. And this notion is that in the most basic sense, there are four types of diseases: excess of color, excess of blood, excess of, I'm mispronouncing this word, sorry, excess of color, excess of blood, excess of melancholy, or excess of phlegm. And everything else is a symptom. This excess might be generalized in the whole body, or it might be localized in different body parts and different organs. And the symptoms not necessarily reflect accurately, or not necessarily they have the same qualities of the underlying illness, of the underlying disturbance, the underlying imbalance of the humors, which means any issue that is hot and dry can have cold and dry, cold and moist, or hot and moist origin. You've experienced a fever. This fever can be a symptom of an excess of color. It can be your body reacting to an excess of phlegm. It can be an excess of melancholy or of blood that results in a fever. And only a skilled physician or a skilled astrologer can tell which is the underlying cause. And my somewhat limited in comparison to practicing astrologers slash physicians of the Renaissance, but not that limited compared to most astrologers. Experience in these kind of questions. This happens a lot. What we call cancer, for example. I've seen cancer coming from any of the humors. I've seen headaches that could be a symptom for an excess of color, an excess of phlegm, or blood, or melancholy, or a mixture of these. So we have to check. We have to know the underlying cause. So how do we do that? I am the querent, so the chart signifies me and my body. And the problem is localized. So I have to determine which part of the body is affected and what signifies this part of the body in the chart. If it was a generalized problem, I would just take the ruler of the first house, me, and see what's the problem with me. If I was asking, or if anyone was asking about another person, and it was a generalized problem, I would take the ruler of the house. That means that person. Someone asking about their child, I would use the ruler of the fifth house, of house 5. Somebody asking about a certain disease that is afflicting their spouse, I would use the ruler of the 7th house. But if we had a definite body part, we should check this part. And here the problem is most definitely my stomach. It does not mean it could not be a generalized underlying problem. No, but the symptom is in the stomach, so that's where we start. So, which house signifies the stomach? We have a problem here. Most of the ancient authors and my teacher and one of my teacher thinks so. I learned that way and I still use it. And anyway, all these people, including me, think the stomach is house 5. But a very well-accomplished astrologer and his teacher, which is also a very well-accomplished astrologer, think the stomach belongs to the 4th house. These astrologers are Felipe Oliveira and his teacher Oscar Hoffman. Oscar Hoffman says in his book it's the 5th house, but he changed his mind. In this chart, I used the 5th house and it worked perfectly. And if I had used the 4th house, it wouldn't have worked as perfectly, as you're going to see. But does it mean I'm right and they are wrong? No. To be honest, I'm still not convinced we should use the 4th. But this chart, although it worked with the 5th, is not proof that the 4th doesn't work. Because when I judged this chart. I didn't know that, so I could not answer it using the fourth. And the chart is a reflection of the sky, and the sky is a reflection of God's will. And a basic axiom of horary astrology is God wants you to answer. He gives you the tools to help other people. So he wouldn't make the sky give me a tool that I didn't use because I didn't know it existed. So this chart answers the question using the fifth house, right? So stomach is house 5 here, and it's house 5 in most of the authors, and I'm still not convinced we should use the fourth, but I'm thinking of it. This is something I'll have to think about for maybe years. But anyway, here it is signified by house 5. And just by being signified by house 5, it answers an implicit question, which is, how is the problem in the stomach related to any problems in the body in general? Or in other words, is the underlying cause somewhere else? Or is the underlying cause different from the localized cause in the stomach? And the answer is no. Either the problem is only in the stomach, or is a generalized problem that is manifesting itself in the stomach. But the cause is one only, because the ruler of the first is Venus, and the ruler of the fifth house is also Venus. So you have to look at Venus and see what is afflicting her and what is afflicting the cusp of house 5. Then we'll get what is afflicting my stomach, and by extension my body in general. What is afflicting my stomach here? Venus itself and the Sun. What is afflicting Venus? Well, two things. The Sun by combustion, and by a nasty combustion. Yes, it is an exalted Sun, good Sun, but it doesn't matter. It's a strong, hot and dry Sun in a strong, hot and dry sign, and this sign is the detriment of Venus. So it's combustion by a very hot and dry Sun that hates Venus. And the other thing that afflicts her is by being in this sign, in a sign that is contrary to her, and it's also its detriment. And look, the planet that rules this terrible sign for Venus, it's fiery Mars, which is also in a hot and dry sign, the same sign. So we have heat and dryness, fire, over fire, over fire. And this fire over fire, at least the first two fire over fire, happens twice. They happens hurting Venus, and hurting Venus, and they happen hurting by opposition the cusp of house 5. So there is no doubt about it. The problem is color. Very emphasized color. But it's not the worst excess of color imaginable, because they are all of them, the 3 planets I've just mentioned, Venus, the stomach, and myself, which is being afflicted twice, the Sun, who afflicts Venus, and Mars, who dominates the sign that afflicts Venus. All of them are in areas for a brief period of time. They have just entered Aries. So first, it's not a long disease that only now started to manifest in my stomach. The problem is recent. More than that, Aries is the first fire sign in the zodiac. It tends to show uh, smaller deviations, a lesser degree of fire. If they were all at the end of Sagittarius, fire would be uh, orders of magnitude greater. This is what the ancient physicians slash astrologers called a first or maybe second degree excess of color. I'm not going to check Richard Saunders now, but it probably is color in heat and dry in the first degree. So this is obviously fire, and I remember the pain, so it's not a bit of pain. It was heavy, but it was not that bad, and it was recent, so it could be cured. And another thing that we should take into consideration, I am very opposed, radically opposed, as checking the natal chart for when we're doing horary to see if the horary is right. First, it assumes incorrectly that we can obtain the same results in natal that we can obtain in horary. This is not true. And secondly, by tying both, it takes away all the usefulness of horary, because if horary has to be checked by natal and natal is able to confirm the results, why use horary in the first place? Just use natal astrology. But I'm not saying we should use natal as confirmation of the horary here. I'm saying we should use a bit of information on natal astrology as context, as a piece of context that is helpful. And this piece of context is my temperament. As I said, I am melancholic. I am not choleric. So melancholics and cholerics tend to have more stomach problems than the rest of the population, because the humors that name them are the ones involved in digesting food. Black color holds the food down in the stomach long enough for red color, for color to destroy it, burn it, break it into what the blood can carry to the entire body. So too much color and the stomach starts being broken down as it was food. That's why color was also called bile, that yellow unpleasant thing that is in the stomach, and we only see it when we vomit. And too much black color, the food doesn't go away, so it burns for too long, so it also burns the stomach. So I know that the most probable cause of that was not a normal excess of color, but maybe a transient excess of color for other reasons, but also the tendency I have to keep the food too long in my stomach. So one of the things I should not do, so I'm going to make the transition now from the problem to the solution. What can I do to alleviate that, to cure that? First things first, one of the things I should avoid doing for the rest of my life is to eat too much at night. because food tends to stay too long in my stomach. I'm not those people who go to all-you-can-eat buffets at the evening and sleep unharmed with no consequences. There are always, at least usually, consequences of me eating too much at night. Secondly, uh, fasting is a good thing, but I should not overdo it, especially in that time when there was too much fire in my stomach and in my body in relation to the normal amount, which is not much. Because fasting heats up the body and heats up the stomach. After that, I could fast regularly, but not during that time, no. I should do it uh, less often and and not very, how can I say that? Not very rigorously. But at the other extreme, I should not eat too much to stuff my stomach with food because it will stay there for a long time because of my radical excess of melancholy, and it would make color, more color to be produced in my stomach and to burn it longer, which would obviously increase my problems. Okay, this is the first step. Not eating at night, trying not to stuff my stomach to make it full ever, and but at the same time, at least in this period, in this particular part of my life, I should not stay too long without eating. Second point, I know I've said a couple of times that I'm melancholic, so the radical the radical excess is black color. I was going, obviously, you look at the chart, I am Venus in Aries, dominated by Mars in Aries, combusts by the Sun in Aries. I had excess of color, so I should do physical activities. I should work out the surplus of fire. I should hydrate myself. I should drink more water. I should be around bodies of water. I should near the beach or a swimming pool or a river. This is a second step. First, we avoid harmful habits, then we suggest helpful habits that could help the person. Third step, food. What kind of food should I eat more, and what kind of food should I eat less? I should eat less hot and dry foods. Everything that is spicy or burning, I should cut down. Pepper, which is a shame because I love pepper. Bell pepper, leeks, garlic, onions, ginger, cinnamon, wasabi, bacon, everything that is hot, excess of salt in foods, salted meats. And I should increase the amount of very fresh leaves, fruits with water and a mild taste, watermelons, melons, fruits in general, avoiding the more acid, the more citric ones, and the ones with the 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 stronger taste. Avoid old cheese. Avoid uh, anything that burns. avoid fried stuff. Eat more soup, more tomatoes, more pumpkins, cucumbers, and drink water. Drink cold and moist drinks, which is water, herb teas from plants that uh, are cold and moist in nature, and with moderation. And that's the good part. The lightest beers. It doesn't mean I should become alcoholic, but a couple of beers sometimes when eating would do good. And because I am melancholic, as I said countless times, foods that are too dry should be avoided too. Not only hot and dry stuff, but also cold and dry or just dry stuff. That's why I mentioned, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have mentioned it then. I should mention it now. Oat, hard cheese varieties, and coffee. You would see that most of that, not all of that, but most of that would not be very different from what people would say without astrology. But some of the things I said, I wouldn't have been able to say without astrology, and the things I would be able to say without astrology, I wouldn't be so sure of it without it. It made me more confident of the right course of action. I also used one or two herbs, as I mentioned, and I drank a couple of herb teas, a couple of herb tea cups that could improve healing, and it worked as a charm. I have never been to any emergency room again, and this question was asked in 2013, and my stomach didn't bother me for over a decade. It started bothering me in a much milder way last year because of other problems that I'm not going to get into here, but were related to emotional problems and stress. So although it's the same fault line, the same organ, because that's how we are all built, things, sorry for the machine analogy, but things seem to break at the same points for each of us. It's not the same problem. It's another problem, milder than the first. And one day I might show a chart on how to deal with this new problem. But uh, this original one was, as far as I can tell, totally cured. More than 10 years without anything. And I was even able to eat at night after it went away. I still cannot eat. I wouldn't if I could, but just for the sake of the argument, I still should not eat or could not eat 3 whole pizzas and 2 hamburgers and then go to sleep, or go to an all-you-can-eat buffet and eat until food came out of my ears. But I was able to enjoy dinner, enjoy eating with my family and my friends at night without problem. So that's it. I hope you liked it, and see you soon. If you like my work, consider tipping me at my Buy Me a Coffee, or even subscribing to it. I'll put the link below in the description.